Good morning, and thank you for joining me for this Sunday sermon from Holy Saviour Church in Hitchin. I'd like just to read to you a short passage from the Old Testament, from the first book of Kings, chapter 17. So he went to Zarephath. When he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, "Would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink?" As she was going to get it, he called, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." "As surely as the Lord your God lives," she replied, "I don't have any bread. Only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said, but first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." So she went away and did as Elijah had told her. There was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. I first remember hearing this famous little story, I think when I was about 11 or 12 years old. I remember then as a child being really struck by it. On one level, it's a story that makes no real sense. Indeed, it seems ridiculous, even impossible. That is, if you take it in a completely literal sense. You can, of course, take it in a literal sense of being a miracle, but you can also take it in another way as well, and then it becomes very true, and it opens up whole horizons of meaning and of application. The widow in the story was down to the last of her food. All she had left was a handful of meal in a jar and a little bit of oil in a jug. And yet, by sharing what she has with the prophet, it never runs out. And there's a point being made here. It's possible to give without losing. In fact, to give can be a way of gaining. Not to give can be a very sure way of losing what we have. If you think of the example of a little tiny grain of wheat, if that grain of wheat is stored away in a barn and left there, it remains just a grain of wheat, which in time will become mouldy and decay until there's nothing left at all. But if you take that grain of wheat out and you plant it, it will die, but in doing so, it's multiplied many, many times over. Or if you take another example, if you light a candle, you can light 50 or 100 candles from that original candle without it being diminished. It's able to share its own light without losing it. So there's a sense in which we can share what we have without being in any way impoverished. In fact, we're more likely to be enriched in doing so. And of course, here we're not talking about material stuff. But if you think, say, of a teacher loses nothing of her or his knowledge by sharing it with their pupils. A mother loses nothing of her love by sharing it with her children. We can share knowledge and love and peace with others without our own supply of these things being in any way diminished. Giving liberates the soul of the giver. The giver is as enriched as the recipient. And we see this in this wonderful little story about the widow. When we give cheerfully and when we accept gratefully, everyone is blessed. Our hymn for today, Be Thou My Vision, and may God's peace go with you.